Me and Manny were just having a conversation about neurodivergent travel and like figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work for you in like traveling as a whole. Because as someone with like neurodivergence, for example, if you have like sensory kind of things, like I feel like we have opposite sensory things because yours is like the typical loud noises or crowds or things like that. And mine is the opposite side of things where I love being in a crowd. I love music so loud that I can't hear my own thoughts. Like that makes me, that's like a weighted blanket over me and it feels really nice. But
well, and you hate weighted blankets. And I love them.
Yeah, it's like the different, and it comes back to with travel, like the differences in what you want and what you're looking for, and why it's kind of important as a neurodivergent person to really think about that, because I feel like someone who isn't is going to want to be the one that's doing all the things. And I feel like for myself, like I've felt like kind of FOMO or something like that in the past where I'm like missing out on stuff because I just can't do it. Like, for example, our last trip to Canada, like we had all these things we wanted to do, but we just can't do it. Like we went to the grocery store, we went to the movies,
we went to 3 malls.
We went to 3 malls, we went to a Walmart, and like that's what makes us happy.
There's a Walmart in the mall.
Yeah.
Which I thought was crazy.
That was a lot of fun. And I feel like what it comes back to, something that we were just talking about, was what makes stuff like this enjoyable for you. Because you shouldn't go on vacation, like hate your life and feel so overwhelmed and just feel terrible and come back from it and be stressed out and all that. But yeah, that's what we were talking about. And you were going to say something, and I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I was just kind of like contextualize the conversation, which was, yeah, what you said, and also prioritizing different things. Because I think for a lot of people, they have the luxury or privilege or whatever you want to call it of being able to focus on like more big ticket items, and so they might be able to kind of, I want to maybe concentrate their vacation into a smaller space.
Yeah. Do you mean like monetarily, or do you mean like time wise, or like self wise? Like
both, like kind of all three of them. Instead of having to go somewhere for like 8 days so that you can like go back to your hotel and like decompress, they can just like go for 3 or 4 days. And that way they're saving money. They can spend more money on things, not just lodging and accommodation. But I think for people who have a, short fuse, if you want to call it, a low social battery, like
you should go for longer.
Prioritize spending your money on something like a nicer hotel, and obviously more time and more time away spent from work, because that's obviously a consideration as well, right?
I think with that too is considering your lodging, and I feel like this just comes along with traveling and figuring it out along the way. But for example, we stay in a lot of, I wouldn't call them hostels, houses that have rooms and shared bathrooms. And we stay in a lot of those, and we have found that works out well for us. But in the beginning, I was like, hell no, I do not want to share a space with someone. That sounds terrible. But we did it once, and I actually don't mind it. But I could see how that could not work for some people, and that doesn't work for us sometimes. Like, for example, this trip, I really wanted to be alone. And so we paid a little bit extra to not be in one of those situations because I wanted space and I didn't want to be around other people. And I feel like that comes back to knowing your boundaries. And like, sometimes I'm good with it. Sometimes it doesn't matter to me and I'm fine, but I know myself well enough, and I feel like this comes again with like traveling and experiences, that you just kind of learn it, and with that you just kind of have to do it. You just kind of have to start somewhere and figure out what you like, what you don't like, because like when I started doing it, I went all out. I used to want to do like all the things, but then I realized I'm not enjoying it. I'm just exhausted. I come home and I feel like that's what leads to needing the vacation from the vacation. When people come home and they're just exhausted, like that doesn't sound enjoyable to me. Like I just went to Dallas to visit my friend and we did nothing. We had all of these plans. We were going to do all of these things every day, and every day was going to be jam-packed. And you know what we did? We sat on the couch and we enjoyed each other's company. And that is what made it such a good trip. And I was worried I was going to come home from this trip and wouldn't be able to transition back into work, and that it was going to be so stressful. But that didn't happen at all. I came home and I was actually refreshed. I had a good time with my friend, and we did what makes us comfortable. And like the fact that, and what it really came down to was we don't live close. I live in Portland, she lives in Dallas. This was our second time seeing each other, and so we wanted that time to really relax and just kind of, I don't know, rot on the couch together, because that's not something that we get to do ever. And so we let go of a good like 90% of the plans that we had and the ideas that we had for our trip. But all in all, that was like a long-winded thing to say, like, you have to figure out what works for you you and do what makes you comfortable and makes it enjoyable. Because I don't know, the people who go on vacation and need a vacation when they get home, I get it if you have kids. Now, I really understand that because I have personally not gone on a big vacation with my kids because I don't think I have it in me at this point. They are getting older, they're 7, and they're getting to a point where I think I would consider it soon. Like, we're considering going back to visit my friend Ashley, because I feel like that would be a low-key introduction to a vacation because we'd have somewhere to stay. It'd be with other kids. If anything, there's another mom and dad so that I don't have to have everything fall back on me, and that does sound nice too. But yeah, all in all, I don't think you should go all out and need a vacation from your vacation. That doesn't sound fun at all.
No, not at all. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I'm kind of talking about. I think you need to be a little bit more gentle to yourself and kind of, be aware of that. Because I think, some people might want to go all out all at once without considering how they're going to actually feel. And what Linnea said about starting to travel anywhere, baby steps, that kind of thing, is I think something that you should probably consider if you're someone who's wanting to travel but doesn't know where to start. If you live whatever.
Go to the beach for a week. I mean,
Yeah,
wherever you might live. Our traveling literally started with just small road trips around us. Like, we live in Portland. I think our first road trip was going down to Crater Lake and then over to Newport or something and then coming back up. So that was a really big, you could do that entire drive in a day. That's not anything crazy. I guess for people like us that are willing to drive 8 hours in a day, but it wasn't anything crazy. It was just doing simple things. And if you need to cut it down even more, just go to a couple towns over from you and stay somewhere and try to experience it in a new way that you wouldn't at home or that you would at home. Just try and see, what works out for you. I think that's the easiest way. We've done a lot of beach trips and a lot of stuff like that that's just so close to home, but it's just doing something a little different and getting out. I feel like getting out also helps because I feel like that leads to a lot of experiences and learning about yourself too, because you find out these things that you don't really do. You don't really realize at home. When you are considering travel as someone who is neurodivergent, someone maybe with some sensory issues, someone who maybe just hasn't traveled before, I have a few suggestions. I think one, you should start small and like we were saying, go somewhere close to home. Just go somewhere a few towns over. Maybe go for an hour drive, somewhere an hour from your house, and experience life that way and just kind of test it out and see what kind of stuff you like on vacation before you go on one of those grand vacations and have to figure it out the hard way. Because when you're doing that, you're spending a lot more money, a lot more time. You're taking time off work. If you're doing something small and figuring out stuff on the weekends, then you're not taking time off work. You're not spending a whole lot of money. It's not this big, grand, expensive, giant thing. And with that, figure out what you like to do on a vacation. Maybe start with something like we like going to different grocery stores, going to the mall. I don't know. Those are just some things that we like to do. So, I like to suggest those things, but maybe you like going downtown and experiencing the small shops and what downtown's like in different areas. I used to think I liked that. I don't think I actually like that. I like the idea, but it's overwhelming for me.
I like the idea of a lot of things. And so that's why I'm thinking that you need to figure it out for yourself because I thought I liked camping.
You don't?
I don't know. Waking up and you're
We
cold.
love camping. What?
You're cold. You have to pee.
No.
Everything's wet.
No. Remember that camping trip we took where the water got in the tent? I woke up sleeping in water.
That's what I mean.
But no. Okay. Well, that's a conversation for another day because now I'm upset.
But I like downtown. I do like downtown. So again, this is we're kind of.
We're getting off track again, but I feel like another point there is maybe going with someone that you can spend time with too. Me and Manny always have a good time and we've never had a bad experience. I feel like, this is a relationship kind of thing, but I feel like in some relationships, my past one, for example, travel was not enjoyable. We just didn't do it because it was not enjoyable. We didn't have a good time. Honestly, it led to a lot of fights. It was not fun. I don't know. We always have a good time. We can literally be doing nothing. We've just been driving around for the last half hour doing absolutely nothing but talking to a camera. And I'm having a good time. And yeah, so going with someone that you enjoy spending time with because they might also get you to experience other things. For example, Manny really likes food carts. I never liked food carts because they overwhelm me, but I kind of like them now because I've gotten to experience them and slowly experience them. And that seems like such a, I don't know, dorky thing, but I don't know. There's
But
just
that's
something.
the thing. That's the thing. Like when you're neurodivergent and you have issues, there are just things.
Issues.
There are just things.
You have
that are,
issues.
There are things that are overwhelming, you know. And just starting that process of traveling, that can be very overwhelming. And so I guess the takeaway is to, I think what Linnea said earlier, and unfortunately that footage is lost. But she summed it up perfectly, which is that you shouldn't expect. What was it again? You shouldn't feel the need.
You shouldn't do the shoulds. Like you shouldn't feel like you have to do what other people do.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you don't need to do just because some people can, like, for example, we're going to Vegas for my birthday, and I feel like past me would be like, oh shit, we got to do this and this and this and this and this. But you know what I want to do? I want to go to a couple buffets. I want to eat. I want to get some mocktails. I want to do a zip line. That is it. And we're going to do that over the course of 2 days. And we're going to like walk around a bit, but we know to schedule in time for rest. Like, for example, we're getting a hotel that we don't mind resting in for the Vegas part of our trip because we're going to be taking naps. We're going to be relaxing versus, you know, other parts of our trip where we're just staying overnight. Like it's basically, we're just there to sleep. So.
And another thing was like, you mentioned like not having an itinerary and just just going crazy, you know, just doing whatever, because that way it's easy, right? I mean, like we're going to tell you, right? Don't feel FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. But it's one thing to say it and there's another thing to do it. And so I think that technique of just like not scheduling anything, maybe just like looking ahead of time, what are some possibilities of what I can do? That's probably enough. But if you have an itinerary, now you're thinking, okay, now I'm missing out.
I feel like that's just maybe like a few things. I feel like it's good to go somewhere and have like maybe an idea. Like maybe there's a restaurant you want to try. Maybe there's, you know, this hike you want to go on. But you should just kind of go with the flow, especially starting out. We've only been doing this stuff together for a few years, and we still, like this trip, for example, we're in Spokane right now. We had no plans. We have one plan, and that is to go to Chili's.
Oh, yeah.
That is our only plan because we don't have a Chili's around us, and I don't even think I've ever been to Chili's, and that just seems so lame.
There's only one Chili's in Oregon and Washington, and it's in Spokane.
Well, that's what we're doing, and that's our excitement. But I feel like going in without the expectation, you won't get disappointed too, because you won't be leaving. Like if you get overwhelmed on this trip, like you're on this trip and you get overwhelmed and you realize you can't do 5 of the things you really wanted to do. I feel like having this loose plan leads to less disappointment because you won't go home disappointed with yourself. Like Manny fell into that because Manny tried to do, what's the trail called? The Appalachian Trail. And Manny had all these expectations for themselves and they want to do the whole thing, but they could only make it 8 days. Anyway, the camera turned off, but Manny went on this trip and Manny struggled with it for months, months and months, and like still struggles with it. Yeah, because Manny had these expectations and it didn't end up happening. Even though they made it 8 days, that's still really cool. 8 days in the woods, completely on your own, only with what's on your back. I think that's really cool. But Manny really struggled with it because they had these big expectations. And maybe this isn't therapy recommended, but I think you should go in maybe not expecting the best.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that just leads to disappointment. And especially with something like travel where you're spending this money. And, you know, for example, like myself.
I do want to, like, I agree. That was a big lesson for me. Mm-hmm. Because, yeah, I had all these expectations. And that's why I think that it's something that people should talk about. I feel like it's, I don't know, it's hard, you know, to be neurodivergent, have sensory issues. Like, I know, or I don't, you know. And, I figured out on that trip, though, that I really like Amtrak because it was like incredibly low pressure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I've been telling Linnea, and she finally is down.
Yeah, so. I took a 7-hour Amtrak ride yesterday from Portland to Spokane. That was honestly... Anyway, we're wrapping this up. The camera is too hot in the sun, but leave the expectations at home, start small, and introduce yourself to this travel because it is really fun. Let go of the shoulds. Because just because other people are doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. Figure out what you enjoy. Have a good time. Is that it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I liked was the don't think you should do what other people are doing.
That goes in all parts of life.
Yeah.
Let go of the shoulds. That is what you should take away from this video. Okay. Love you. Bye.